All right, testing, check 1, 2. How we doing? Everything working? That all looks good. Boom, there's me. Trying to get professional about all this streaming nonsense. Cool, that looks good. I need to make some intro music. Maybe that's what I'll do on stream today. All right, hello and welcome to the stream, the Tuesday Ableton office hours hangout, talk about making music with Ableton live stream. So first off, I'm just gonna go rant for a little bit. I have not been able to do the Friday feedback streams recently for a variety of reasons, mostly because I've had to do some traveling. So I'd been out of town the last 2 Fridays in a row, and I haven't really had time to kind of reschedule those. And unfortunately for you guys, but I will not be able to do the Friday feedback stream again this Friday, which will be June. Oh God, I don't know what date that is. Will be the 16th? No, 17th or 18th, something like that. I'm gonna be out of town for that. And then I will be back for the Friday feedback stream on Friday the 25th. I do know the date of that one because that is when the sample pack song challenges are due, which I need to start reminding people about, and I need to start working on. So I have not really had a chance to spend a lot of time doing my sample pack song challenge. So next week I'm just gonna try to bust it out as fast as I can. It looks like my mic's a little loud. I'm gonna turn it down a tiny bit. You can go down here a little bit. Hopefully that's a more reasonable volume. But yeah, so no Friday feedback stream this week, but next week for sure it's gonna be hopefully a really good one, and we'll take a look at any of these songs that people have made for the Friday feedback streams. So that is the big news for me. Unfortunately, like I said, streaming has been a little tricky on Fridays because traveling on the weekends is pretty much the only time I can do it. But yeah, I'm looking forward to hearing what everybody's got they're working on for the sample pack challenges. I did a little bit of work on stream last week, I think, and I haven't really touched it since. So I gotta make sure I spend some time with it. But because this is the office hour stream, you guys, anybody who's out there in chat watching, you are more than welcome to toss any questions you have in the chat, whether they're related to literally anything related to music production stuff. So it can be about sound design, arrangement, mixing, whatever you're into, and I will try to answer it to the best of my ability. That's really kind of the whole point of these streams. And for right now, I'm just gonna go ahead and screw around, make some noises, and I didn't really have a plan for today other than that. So hopefully you guys come in and feed me some of your questions. Or I will just start talking about something I think is cool and interesting. But for right now, I don't have anything, nothing was pre-planned. So let me go ahead and I guess we'll do a little bit of sound design. That's usually a good place to get started. Let's turn the volume up on this guy a little bit. And the other thing that I wanted to try out, might as well do this now, is I want to switch to the double camera view. Boom, 2 cameras. And that way I can play stuff on the push and you guys can see it, or if you guys have questions about writing things either with the push or just kind of MIDI controllers in general, I now have a bit of a fancier setup, and I'm not entirely sure how I feel about where the push lives in in the context of its where streaming. So if you have any ideas on layouts of where I could put the push or in my camera and like in a way that doesn't block too much of the screen, I am open to ideas on that front, because right now I'm just kind of winging it and just trying to see if it'll work. For right now, if people don't have questions about the push, I think it's a little easier on my computer and my internet to just do the single camera version. But I'm stoked that that's working, at least as much as it is so far. All right, so yeah, let's do a little sound design. And I think what I want to do is like a really kind of pretty delicate, plucky kind of sound, and maybe with like a bunch of reverb and delay, and maybe make a little atmospheric, maybe a little arpeggiation on it. I think that's just kind of the mood I'm in. So let's pick a key, something like this. And when it comes to doing quick, kind of plucky sounds, filter envelopes are really going to be your best friend. So here's just a square wave, which is not super pleasant up in these like that kind of octave range. So we're going to take the filter frequency, get rid of pretty much everything. We're going to go to our envelope number 2. We're going to turn our sustain all the way down, do something kind of like this. We're going to go to our matrix, and we're going to turn this up. And that allows me to create a nice kind of like plucky sound. And if I wanted to make it like really quick and plucky, that could work. We're also going to take the volume envelope, because right now, if I hold down a note, you can still hear it a little bit in the background, just not what I want. So I want the volume envelope to also go down, but I can make it a little bit longer, because that can also work. Cool, that's a decent starting point. And then I'm also going to switch this to a triangle and maybe go up like an octave or two. And that gets us this nice kind of like metallic bell kind of sound. And we can play with how far it goes up over here in the matrix. Something like that could work. And let's put a little bit of unison on it, but not that much. Cool, so I can get into that. And we might play and like maybe use like a totally different waveform. It gives us a nice different kind of like textural, tonal quality to it. But really what I want is lots of delays and lots of arpeggiation. So we're gonna go to the arpeggiator, and let's think about what kind of tempo I want to be. I think I'm feeling like a 95 maybe ish kind of range, and maybe like 16th notes at 95. Nice, it's a little 80s sounding, but let's get away from here. And let's play with our matrix a little bit. That could work. And let's give this a little bit of motion too, because I like the like slow motion movement. So it has like a fast arpeggiation, but it's changing slowly over time. So on our oscillator 1 position, we're going to give us a little bit of LFO. Not a whole lot, just a little bit. And we're going to take our LFO 1 and make it very, very slow. Like almost as slow as it can go. Maybe a little faster than that. That's on the filter frequency, that's why. Oscillator position. That's kind of what I'm looking for. However, you'll notice that right now it's not doing what I want it to do. It's just repeating the initial part of the LFO every single time. So we're going to turn the retrigger and turn that off. That way it just kind of changes through the different parts of the wave table, and then we can switch through a couple different wave tables and see if we can find one that we think works really well for this kind of sound. I kind of like that, but we're getting like a little bit too much variation in there. So maybe we'll like tone it down here. I actually don't mind that. Cool. And let's also add some extra steps here. Steps always make not everything better, but it just tends to make a lot of things a lot better. Cool. And now it was really where the fun comes in. Putting some delay on here is really what's going to make this sound the most interesting, in my opinion. And I think we've got a lot of choices when it comes to delays. We're kind of spoiled for choice. I think the regular delay works great, or using echo also works really well. I'm gonna go ahead and use echo just because a couple of reasons. Number one, it just has more features. It just does everything really well. And just like right out of the box, sounds pretty good. It also has a decently nice built-in reverb. Oftentimes, if I'm like really trying to dial in my sound on something like this to make it nice and atmospheric, I'm gonna like customize my reverb and either use like a third-party plugin, either use like Valhalla Shimmer or Vintage Verb or something like that. But this is nice because it gives me a good starting point just for like tossing in some reverb just to see what it sounds like. Which I think sounds pretty cool. All right, now let's tweak this a little bit. I'm gonna put this on. I like ping pong in mid-side mode a lot. Let's do ping pong for right now. And let's do triplets and see how this sounds. What's up, love? How's it going? I feel like it has been a while. Did you ever finish up that track that you shared like way back many moons ago? Like one of the first live streams. All right, I think I want a little bit more feedback here, and I think I want even shorter and maybe not triplets, but let's see what it sounds like with triplets first. I actually kind of like that, but less dry wet. Yeah, I'm kind of into that. I think we can play a lot with the reverb here. I'm not sold on the timing yet, but maybe I could be. So normally if I have like a 16th note or an 8th note sound like I do right now, I like my delays to be like 12th notes or 6 notes or some like triplet increment or something kind of weird. But this actually sounds really nice to me. This actually feels like it's working. I think I can live with that. I do want to try triplets one more time and maybe do like a slower triplets, like a 6 note. It's cool, but I think it's a little bit too chaotic. That's a bummer. I've been thinking about that track every once in a while. I'm like, I wonder if Love ever finished that or what that sounds like now. Cool. Well, at least you're getting some work and doing stuff for other artists. Is that something you're getting paid to do, or are you just kind of collabing with people? Like you're doing like production work professionally? And I think that could work, but I think the straight 16th notes is the better way to go here. And maybe we can offset a tiny bit here with this percentage control. This is actually a super cool control. This will increase or decrease the timing of your left or right side by small percentages. So they're not exactly on 16th notes, but are slightly off. Which I kind of like, and maybe we'll go back to just stereo mode. Nah, it sounds better in ping pong. Nice, that's dope. I mean, if it's paying the bills, then that's awesome. And you know, sometimes your own personal creative projects have to get put on hold a little bit if you're bringing in money from other people. Well, welcome back to the stream. Hopefully, you know, this is entertaining and useful for you. I think since the last stream it was like a song feedback stream. This is mostly just kind of like hang out and talk about music stuff. So you can feel able to ask questions if you got any, or just whatever. that's kind of what this stream is all about. So I kind of like this as a sound. I do want to add in an extra step and see what happens. And maybe speed it up. Oh, I actually like that quite a bit. That way I'm using the triplet timing here, but still using just the straight 16th notes on the echo. And the two of those, I think, work pretty well together. A little faster than normally what I do, but that could be good for like a more kind of higher energy thing. So now that I have kind of like the basic sound that I want, oftentimes what I like to do is turn off oscillator 1, turn on oscillator 2, and that way I can kind of like start over from scratch with the like framework already pre-built out, and then I can go in and find like a totally different waveform and kind of combine the two together and see how they work together. So let's go to complex and see if we can find something that sounds cool. That kind of works. And let's do the same thing, but we'll have a different LFO with a different timing on our oscillator 2 position. And here we're about 0.5 hertz. So we'll turn retrigger off, make it a little different. That kind of works, but maybe even slower. And another thing we could try doing that's kind of interesting is we can switch the filter modes. So here we have both oscillator 1 and oscillator 2 going through filter 1. But if we split them, that means that oscillator 1 is going to filter 1 and oscillator 2 is going to filter 2. So we can have totally different filter settings here. So we can have like a different set of motion on our pluck, and that can work out pretty well for us. So here's what it sounds like right now. Actually sounds pretty cool. But I do want to get that filter motion in, so we're going to switch this over to another low pass. And maybe we'll have this start a little higher. And we're going to have envelope 3 control this one. So maybe make this a little longer and a little slower. And we'll go in here. Same idea. Make this go higher. What's up, Emo? I've been here, what time did I start? 20 minutes ago or so. And mostly I've just been kind of jamming out, making this kind of plucky kind of sound. That's pretty much it. No, I haven't really missed much. It's mostly been me just kind of talking to either Love, who's also in here, or myself, and just kind of going through my process of making a nice kind of like plucky arpeggiated sound. Actually sounds pretty good. So yeah, that's basically it so far. I got a little arpeggiator, 24th notes, going up 2 steps. Yeah, I already did oscillator 1, and now I'm doing oscillator 2. And then I got just an echo on 16th notes with a little bit of chaos on the timing. Actually, no, it's not on 16th notes, it's on 24th notes. And a little bit of reverb. And that's pretty much it. All I just did was switch it up here so that oscillator 1 goes to filter 1 and oscillator 2 goes to filter 2, and that way I can kind of tweak them a little bit and kind of make them separate. But as of right now, I'm just kind of screwing around. I just had the idea for like, I was listening to Spotify earlier today and just was listening to some kind of like interesting ambient textural kind of stuff, and there's a lot of like arpeggiation stuff going on. So that's kind of what I felt inspired to start with. So yeah, so we're gonna play around with this a little more, see if I can tweak these settings a little more. And see if I can find the right kind of settings to make this sound nice and interesting and more different than filter 1. So I'm gonna turn the amount down here, and I'm also going to play with the settings here. Is envelope 3? Oh, that's why. Envelope 3 is over here. That's what I'm looking for. One's kind of cool. Just one note. That's a great idea here. Let's do a little bit of velocity onto. Actually, let's do the aftertouch or pressure here, and that way, I guess I'm like playing the push. I can like pressure it differently. Also, just to test this out, now that you guys are here, boom, there's the push. And now you can actually see me play things. And this is an experiment I'm trying with the two cameras. Let me know if you like it or not. But yeah, let's put a little pressure here on filter 2 and a little bit less on filter 1. Hey Josh, welcome. How's it going? Do something like that and see how this works. Sweet. So we got that there, and then we got some requests for a little more randomization. Let me think. What would be cool to randomize here? Let's randomize some of these effects. I feel like the effects here are super underappreciated. If we tweak the fold here and just do a little bit of randomization on it. Here's the thing about this that I actually don't know the answer to. When I have an arpeggiator coming in, it'll still randomize it with each arpeggiated note. It's not based off of the notes that I'm playing from the push. So it should still... Well, welcome to both the Joshes. That's just a funny coincidence. I just, I can see everybody's real name through YouTube. So that's the power they give me. All right, we got 2 oscillators now. Kind of reminds me of the Daft Punk soundtrack, or the Daft Punk soundtrack to Tron. That's kind of like thing. Also, just in case, you guys have mostly been here before. If you guys have any questions that have nothing to do with this arpeggiated thing that I'm making, feel free to just toss them in the chat. And you Joshes will have to battle to the death to uncover who can be the only Josh in the chat. So yeah, there's a few kind of weird things in here. Is it coming from this guy? Like a... Once if I go super low with it. All right, let's get this back on here. Cool, I'm kind of digging that. Let's go ahead and just take all these guys, group them up, put them in a rack, and I'm going to save this for later in case I want to use this in a track. I'm just going to call this Tron Arp. Let's not name it the same as something that already exists. Must have made a different Tron art before. Cool. So Love, I generally mostly use only the live stock devices. Um, there's a few plugins I use quite a bit when I'm like actually producing, not on stream. I use Contact quite a bit. I use the Valhalla plugins a bit. I use the FabFilter stuff a bit. But just generally, mostly when I'm making music, even when it's kind of like on my own, I will stick to primarily the live stuff just because they're really fast and they're really easy to use. And I find a lot of times when I'm using plugins, I want to tweak all the knobs. I want to like change all the things and do all the things, and then just slows down my whole workflow. And so I like using a lot of the live stuff because it's like, okay, cool. A couple minutes, I make the sound that I want, and I don't have to like endlessly tweak parameters, even though sometimes I end up doing that anyway. Also, and then partially when I'm on stream, my computer does this weird thing where if it gets like even like the tiniest bit of CPU overload, OBS, my microphone disconnects OBS from YouTube somehow, or OBS disconnects itself from the microphone, whatever. My microphone just like randomly dies during the streams, and I know it's a CPU thing, and I know it's not my microphone. It's an OBS or OSX or YouTube thing, and so using just the live devices is also a way to help me keep my CPU load down so I don't run into more of those microphone issues, because it's a pain in the ass and it happens like once per stream. And I'm trying to figure out what's causing it, and I think it's OSX. Yeah, Love it. It feels like they've updated it already, and a lot of the CPU stuff has been fixed, but it's still a little wonky. So Josh was asking, do I normally work in the in-scale mode and the push? So yeah, so a lot of the times when Josh, when I'm just like hanging out making music, I like using the in scale mode a lot, just because I can just jam out and I don't need to like worry about anything. And I'm not the best like musician, and so it helps me, just keeps my life easy. I have played around a bit with like jamming in chromatic mode and being able to like switch keys and things like that, but I am not skilled enough to like use that on the regular or while people are watching. Like that's much more of like, I'm going to do that at home as a way just to improve my own skills. But yeah, just the in key mode, in scale mode is just makes my life super easy. What's up, Brian? So before I get into your question, DJMO, shimming from another computer is a great idea, but my laptop is kind of a piece of shit, and I don't think it'd handle it any better than what I have going on. But I would love that. I think that'd be a great idea. Maybe someday in the near future. So Brian was asking a little bit about CPU usage. So there are a bunch of things you can do to reduce CPU. Obviously, you mentioned you need to be a 128 buffer. Playing with your buffer size is probably the fastest and easiest way to play around with it. Some things that people don't often always think about that have nothing to do with live is, number one, turn off the internet. Just like disconnect from your Wi-Fi. That's a great way to kind of like not only help keep yourself focused on making music and not be distracted by stuff, but just to like turn that off so there's no like weird background updates or no software in the background that's like trying to do stuff. That can actually make a noticeable difference. Another thing you can do that's kind of weird if you're like really in a pinch is you can change your resolution of your screen for whatever operating system you're running on, and that will actually reduce your computer's CPU. And that way, if you're like really need it to work at a certain level and you're struggling with like an older computer, that can totally work. Obviously, freezing and flattening any tracks that are CPU intensive is going to be a fantastic way to do it. So if you're not sure, if you hit this little C button over here down in the bottom right corner, this is your CPU meter for individual tracks, and this is only on live 11. So if you're using live 10, you just kind of have to guess. But you can see when I play some notes, you can see this starts to light up, and the more lights means the more CPU intensive that this is going to be. So if you are in that situation, let me go ahead and turn the push camera off for a second. Boom. You can freeze and flatten a track, which basically, you don't even need to flatten it. You just need to freeze it. So if you right click on this and hit freeze track, it basically records every clip on this track to audio. And when it's audio, it will take up barely any CPU. So that's the thing I would search for first. If after buffer size is hunt down any of your tracks that have a lot of effects on them, a lot of processing, a lot of synthesizers on them, freeze it, which converts it to audio, and that instantly reduces your CPU. And if you do that to your like 2 or 3 tracks that have the most stuff going on, that's a great way to do it. So just to kind of show you how that works, if I have like some MIDI notes in here, and I right click here, hit freeze it, it will still look like MIDI, and it will play, and you can see that like here's all of my effects and everything here, and when I play it, there's my beautiful performance. But this is now an audio clip that it's referencing, which means it's basically taking up no CPU, and we can even see here the CPU meter is like basically nothing. So that's like a great way to reduce your CPU if you have a lot of stuff going on, especially with a lot of MIDI. And if you want to change your mind, or you want to go back to work on the MIDI more, you can just right click again and hit unfreeze, and you can go back in and you still have access to all the MIDI. So that's probably one of the okay, so if you're doing a bunch of like stuff in real time, so freezing is not going to help you. Okay. Other things that you can do is you can check your preferences. For example, like under the link MIDI tab, I see a lot of people that have like all of this stuff turned on in their MIDI preferences. Only turn on the ones that you need, and that will reduce your CPU. Not by a lot, but a little bit might be helpful. Other things that are easy to do, I mean, getting rid of tracks that you're not using, like anything that's superfluous, that's just like, you know, you have some experimental ideas that you're working on that you're not using anymore, getting rid of that stuff. You know, less tracks means less CPU. Using your return tracks, if you're using like a lot of effects, which I think Emo mentioned in the chat, like instead of putting a reverb on a bunch of tracks, just you have a reverb return track. That's super helpful. Getting fancy with your routing and grouping things for effects can also be really helpful in terms of reducing your CPU. What's the kind of situation you're in, Brian? Like what's your session gonna look like in terms of like, are you doing it for live performance? Are you just doing stuff in the studio? You're recording a bunch of audio all at the same time? What's your setup like? Yeah, it also depends on like how old your computer is. Getting a new computer does solve a lot of problems. Like I got a new one a couple months ago, and it solved pretty much. What's your live setup look like? A Mac 2015 should. I mean, I was using a 2015 MacBook, and that was starting to show its age around now. So, 11 beta. But like, how many tracks are you running inside of Live? Are you running like 50 tracks, or are you running like 10 or 15, or somewhere in between? Yeah, I mean, a lot of it comes down to like what your setup is and what your goals are, and what you're trying to accomplish all at the same time. And Yeah, your computer should totally be able to handle live guitar and vocal and some synth loops. That should not be an issue for a 2015 iMac. Since you are using Live 11, as other people have mentioned in the chat, Live 11 is having some CPU weird issues, and so that might be causing some of it. If you have Live 10, you could try going back to Live 10 and seeing if that fixes anything for you. Or also just double check to make sure you're on the most updated version of Live 11. I think we're on 11.0.2, if I'm not mistaken. Yeah, 11.0.2. So if you're using 11.0 or 11.0.1, those might be experiencing more CPU issues than the more updated version. And it should auto-update, but sometimes it doesn't. What kind of audio interface are you working with? I think of anything else important. And what's your sample rate? I've seen some people try to work at like really high sample rates, and that also crushes your. Yeah, with the Thunderbolt interface, you should be totally fine at 128. So if you're working at 48K, yeah, that's it seems like you're doing all the right things. You got checked all the right settings. It might be like, going through your computer and updating your operating system, cleaning out old stuff, seeing if there's anything on your computer that's slowing it down. I mean, at this point, it's about 6 years old, so you might have accumulated a lot of stuff over time that is kind of sucking some of your resources down. Just keep an eye on your activity monitor, especially like make sure if you're using Chrome, like quit all that. Like Chrome is a CPU hog. Like one window of Chrome will just like crush your CPU. So make sure there's no programs running in the background, but yeah, check your activity monitor, see if there's any software that's going on in the background that causes some issues. The big thing that I was dealing with my 2015 MacBook Pro is it was overheating like all the time. And so that was just like throttling all my performance, and there's nothing I could do about it. Josh, you don't really need to worry about disk fragmentation with MacBooks. You have your like a whole other set of issues you need to deal with Macs. Yeah, Brian, it sounds to me like your Live is set up pretty much the way you want in terms of maximizing your CPU, and it's just other things, or it's like a hardware thing, or something else going on with your computer. Is my my analysis from what you're describing? Because just running a couple tracks with guitar and vocals with a couple effects and a couple synth loops should not be an issue for your computer. But I appreciate the question. Anybody else got any topics they are interested in talking about? Appreciate all you guys coming and hanging out on this Tuesday afternoon or evening for some people. All right. I was working on this guy, and or if you have guys have ideas on what I can do to this sound, to make this sound some cooler, let me know. What's the SSL J9000? I'm like so not up to date on a lot of plugins and gear these days. All right, well, let's take LFO 1 and put it on the warp here. Let's put a little glide on it. Is that one of the UA versions of the SSL, or is it the actual OG SSL? Grouping MIDI notes for probability reasons. I mean, like in a single clip, if you just had like a bunch of notes and then you wanted to, like some of them to have certain probabilities and other ones to not have probabilities. Is that kind of what you're looking for? The thing that I do a lot now is instead of just playing around with probabilities, I'm doing playing around with the velocities, because you have a nice amount of control here for like randomizing it within specific values. So I can just like keep on clicking it to kind of like barely adjust things. Yeah, I think that now that they've added things like probability to MIDI editing, I feel like we're going to get more features like that, so you can like really customize and get lots of cool, interesting, weird variations on MIDI with like a couple clicks of a button. So Josh, you could do something like that with follow actions. So let me just record a couple like variations. So we have that as like variation number 1. Whoa, way too fast. And then like say we have a different version here that is like a shorter version, where we're gonna get like a half bar each time. And you wanted there to be like a probability of this playing and then a probability of this playing. You could do that all with follow actions. Let me just catch up on chat here real quick. Sometimes it's hard to like talk and read chat at the same time. So yeah, so if you select both these guys and hit this little triangle guy and turn on your follow actions, and let's actually make another one that's just empty. So we have an empty one, a whole bar one, and a half bar one. And I select all these guys, and I want them to randomly go to another clip. Let's go to any, which is any clip including itself. And maybe I'll have like a I don't know, 40% chance it'll go to a random clip and a 60% chance that it will stay on itself. So if I play one of these, it's now going to go to this, randomly go to this one. And then this one's going to play. Should have made these shorter. And then this one is going to itself next. And then now it's going to go to this one, which is the whole bar one. And then it's going to randomly go back here. So you can set up different variations of like different probabilities or different randomized versions of a melody, and then have them randomly swap back and forth between them, and then control the probabilities here between action number 1, which can be any one of these guys, which is like go to the next clip, go to the previous clip, go to the first clip, go to a random clip including itself, going to a random clip excluding itself, or you can have another action here. And so these can be either no action, which means it just continues to loop, or it can be any one of these things here. So you could have like a 50% chance it goes to the next clip, 50% chance it goes to a random clip, including itself. So you can kind of like create 5 different variations on your melody, have it randomly jump between them, and then like you could record the output of that or whatever you want. So Brian, describe that situation a little bit more in depth to me. So you want to thin the MIDI data as it loops. It's getting pretty dense, which is what's pushing the CPU. Are you like overdubbing MIDI on top of other MIDI? Like you have a MIDI loop and you just like keep playing more stuff on top of it, and so it just keeps on adding up? Or is it a different than that? Yeah, Josh, this is a super cool feature that I feel like people underappreciate a lot. There's a lot of cool stuff you can do with follow actions. I haven't made a video on follow actions yet, I don't think, because it seems like a lot of people already know about it, but it's really cool, and it does blow people's minds when you're like, oh yeah, you can do tons of crazy stuff with this. So yeah, so if you are overdubbing MIDI on top of itself, that shouldn't be too heavy on your CPU. Like it's going to be obviously sending more MIDI into the same instrument, but that shouldn't massively increase your CPU. MIDI itself is actually very light on CPU. It's when the MIDI hits the instrument, that's when the processing happens. So that's when it generates the notes and generates the sound, and the oscillators start moving. But yeah, I think unless you're trying to specifically like overdub and layer lots of stuff together, maybe recording multiple clips might be a little bit lighter on CPU than just having a tons of MIDI in one clip. Yeah, and going into the synth and changing number of voices, as switch to monophonic if you only want it to be monophonic or polyphonic, etc. The less number of voices you have, obviously, the less CPU it's going to take up. But Josh, does this make sense in terms of how follow actions work and how you can kind of like randomize between different clips? Hopefully. If you haven't done it, try it out because it's bonkers. What's up, Tripathi? Welcome. How are you doing today? Cool, sweet. So I can go ahead and get rid of these guys. I think those are not something I'm actually gonna play. So I wanted to take the sound and I wanted to make it better. Let's try switching up the arpeggiator style. Converge and diverge are almost always my favorite. Welcome, Van. So in order, pretty much, do I have to create multiple audio tracks first? Otherwise, it doesn't seem to create tracks for you. Welcome. So first off, Van, there's no stupid questions. Everything is always a good question. So you're talking about importing multiple multiple clips into multiple tracks. No, you don't need to make the audio tracks first. However, if you already have a bunch of MIDI tracks in the way, it might not like that. But for example, if I have a bunch of samples, let me find some samples. So here are a bunch of samples that I want to add. If you want them to be on separate tracks, if I try to just clicking and drag, it puts them all on one track. But if you hold down the command key, it puts them all on separate tracks. And then you just let go. And then it made a separate track for everyone and put them all kind of in line with each other. So command key, or I think alt if you're on PC, will do that. And that way they all get given their own track like that. So my command Z to undo that. So I just started with the the 2 MIDI tracks I already have, the 2 audio tracks, and then just on command, and then just kind of each one gets its own track like that. Hopefully that answers your question. I think that sounds like the situation you're in. But if I were to have like a bunch of MIDI tracks in the middle, this is actually kind of a weird situation. If I have a bunch of MIDI tracks in the middle and then I try doing it, it doesn't like doing that because it can't put the audio clips on these 2 MIDI tracks that are in between all my audio tracks. Did I lose audio, or is that? No, that's just you. So yeah, you literally grab a bunch of audio clips, just shift select them. Let's get rid of these MIDI tracks. Let's get rid of all of them. And you just hold down the command key, or I believe Alt if you're on PC. Just click and drag, hold down the command key, and put them on separate tracks. Oh, it's Control on PC. I always forget which one that is. Yeah, and then it just creates new audio tracks for you. However, the one thing you need to watch out for, oops, let me make some audio tracks here, is if you already have a bunch of tracks here. So here, if I have like some audio tracks and then some MIDI tracks, and then I try doing the same thing, it doesn't let me do that because it doesn't want to put the audio on the MIDI tracks. So if it's either empty space with nothing or just audio tracks, you can just drag them in there. But if there's like MIDI tracks in the way and you try to add them onto the MIDI tracks, it doesn't let you do that. So get rid of the MIDI tracks and then just hold on command, boom, they all get their own tracks like that. One of my favorite key commands in all of Live, especially if you have like lots of stems and things like that, it makes it way easy. But yeah, that's a fantastic question. Yep, precisely. Maybe make sure I'm catching up on chat. Yeah, Josh, using the follow actions for making like pseudo randomized chord progressions or percussive loops is really, really fun. Try it out. So Emo's making some Chernobyl sounds. Sounds cool. I wanna hear what the Chernobyl techno sounds like. Sweet. So yeah, so now I got a bunch of people here. Might as well just let you guys know in case anybody's curious. I'm going to be out of town on Friday for this week's Friday song feedback stream, so that won't be happening. But the sample pack song challenge is due the Friday after that, so the 25th of Friday. I will definitely be back for a Friday feedback stream, and so I'm looking forward to hear what you guys have done with the sample packs and where different directions people take with it. I am way behind on mine. I have not had any time to work on it recently, but next week I'm just gonna crank it out in like a day and see what I can do with it. Also, I just yesterday released a video on my live performance setup where I basically just stole a bunch of ideas from the glitch mob. So if you want to get a peek under the hood of kind of how I've been performing for a while and how I do like an all original setup, check that out and let me know what you think about it. It's the kind of thing that I'm thinking about making more videos about, like live performance kind of custom setups, but only if people are into that kind of thing. So anybody else in chat got questions, or did I miss anything? I think I'm all caught up on chat. And as always, I appreciate all you guys coming in and hanging out. It's what makes the whole stream really fun. All right, so where were we on this guy? I switched this to Converge. One of these guys is getting a little bit more, it's like a little low frequency in there I don't like. So Brian, I am located in Colorado currently. How about yourself? So any tips on playing guitars realistically on the keys? That's a great question. I mean, I think it starts off with having a sample instrument that sounds good. And I think guitars can be kind of few and far between in terms of what sounds good and what doesn't. Honestly, if I'm going to be doing anything like that, Contact is going to be my go-to any day of the week over over anything else. I mean, I think there's some interesting options in like tension. It also depends on what kind of guitar you're going for. If you're going for like a really clean acoustic guitar, you need to have a good sampled instrument. If you're going for like a distorted guitar, it doesn't matter. It's much more about the effects and what you put on it. But if you want to, you can try out like if you don't have Contact, you could try out some of like the sampler instruments, the guitar ones. I don't stand by the quality of any of them. I don't necessarily think they're any like super good. Yeah, they're like generally not very good. However, tension can work. And generally I don't recommend tension because it's a little weird and it's a little wonky. It's like a physical modeling synth. But for guitars, like that can work for a specific kind of guitar. I don't love it, but it's better than some of the other options. But yeah, Contact is what I'm going to go to. And then, like I said, if you're going to something really clean, you need to have a nice cleaned sampled instrument that sounds really good. Yeah, there's some cool things you can do with strumming. They can help a lot. If you have like a set up like an arpeggiator or something to do some like interesting strumming motion, can be kind of cool. Yeah, so taking something like this, that to me like sounds okay by itself, you can really kind of mask that with distortion. So using something like amp, but like turning the dry wet way down. Like all of a sudden it's like, it sounds way better. So if you're going for guitar, even if it's like a fairly clean guitar, like using things like amp, I don't know if cabinet will really help me much on here. That's the wrong one. But cabinet can go well with guitars. Those can all kind of work. And you can do some like cool, interesting stuff with like the microphone placement. It can be hit or miss, and it can take a lot of like kind of going through and dialing in a lot of your settings. So Van, I honestly have not tried to set up a strumming arpeggiator. I've seen other people do it, but I honestly haven't tried it out myself because I haven't been using guitar in any of my songs recently. So unfortunately, that's something that there are probably people who have done it more than myself who could probably give you better recommendations on how to set that up. Yeah, if you're gonna be like kind of working from scratch using tension instead of using a preset. The plectrum setting is the basically guitar setting. And tension's such a weird one. I want to do like a hour-long video just talking about tension and all of the very weird settings that exist within tension. But if you're going to be using it, like try out like things like the decay, the ratio, the inharmonics, and the damping controls down here. This is basically like your resonator section. And depending on what you do, you can get this like infinite decay out of it. It can work, but like I said, not my favorite. I think you're much better off either using Contact, or best case scenario, you find somebody who plays guitar and you write something. You write a guitar piece using MIDI, using tension, using whatever you have access to, and then you send it off to somebody else who plays guitar and have them record guitar on top of it, and then you can delete your MIDI out of there. And that's a great way to do it. That's how I write a lot of my like violin parts for songs that I've released in the past. Is I'll play a violin part on the push using Contact, using whatever I have access to, and then send it off to a violinist. They actually play the real part, play the notes that I played, but actually play it, and it sounds way, way better. That's probably the ideal situation for kind of like coming up with your own guitar, adding guitar to your song and making it sound nice and interesting and realistic. Oh, nice. You can record MIDI and audio from your guitar at the same time. That's pretty sick. I knew somebody who had a MIDI guitar, but it had a MIDI pickup on his guitar, but I think he was only recording MIDI out of it. I don't think he was recording audio, and I don't think it worked super, super well. How accurate is that? I see you guys have all kinds of recommendations today. This is great. Sweet, Chapati, that kind of answer your question a little bit? Is it called the Fishman? That's a great name for, for a MIDI instrument. Yeah, because it's converting the vibrations coming from the guitar into MIDI, right? So it's kind of like doing the audio to MIDI that Live can do, but it's doing it in real time and responding just from the vibrations coming from the string. I'm assuming that's how it works. Which I imagine you have to calibrate it right. You got to make sure that like you're playing in your guitar's tuned really tightly, and that sounds super cool though. Yeah, the Spitfire Lab stuff, Josh, is also really great. I guess Josh said it, but for anybody else out there who is looking to get some nice kind of like orchestral sounds and things like that. I haven't updated that on my new computer. I need to get my Spitfire libraries up and running here. Yeah, guitar is really interesting because the way you play it is so much different than a keyboard, and the way the notes flow from one to another is very different than a piano. Sweet. Well, I'm loving all the recommendations you guys are giving out. This is sick. Yeah, it amazed me that that audio to MIDI technology is so accurate. like just taking that from a live performance and turning that into instant MIDI. Yeah, I love Contact will always be like one of my desert island plugins. It just gets the job done for so many different things. All right, so let me get back to this sound unless anybody else has other questions that they want to ask. All right, so we got this going on, and I wanted to get a little more warp going on here with some of these effects. Let's do a little pulse width. I kind of like that. Let's put a little bit of LFO on that. Oh man, Desert Island Contact Library. Oh, that is a really tough one. I use Contact a decent amount for some of the cool pianos in there. So, but I also have cool pianos other places. So it probably wouldn't be a piano one. It would probably be one of the orchestral ones or one of the like world music ones. Some of like the African or Middle Eastern ones I think are pretty sick. Honestly, the core library is really nice because it has a bunch of like random stuff in there all in one place. Yeah, probably this one. Probably the African one, one of the symphonic ones, and I don't know what my third one would be. Probably one of like the weird industrial ones that has like a bunch of like the kinetic one, or some of like the really kind of just like weird glitchy percussive ones. Yeah, Van, that's 100% been my secret for a long time, is use my Contact violins with an actual violinist playing on top of it, mix the two together, and it sounds dope, and nobody can tell the difference. But if you just listen to just the Contact violins, they very much sound like Contact violins. Yes, a lot of times the weird like industrial ones, they're just good for like getting one shots out of it. It's like, okay, I need some like interesting like crashing metal sounds. Like, cool, there's one right there. And then like not as much to like play them as much. It really kind of depends though a little bit on which library they're from. Yeah, layering synthetic drums with real drums at the same time, also great way to get some nice beefy sounding drums. And kind of get like one foot in both worlds, like the analog world and the digital world, and kind of like confuse your audience's ears a little bit in terms of what they're hearing. All right, let's get some more effects going on here. I feel like we've got a nice core sound. Question for you guys. How do you guys feel about the spectral plugins, the spectral resonator and the spectral time? Now that those have been out for a little bit and you may or may not have had a chance to play around with them. Because I have mixed feelings about them. All right, let's do a little bit of chorus on this. All right, we want more on the amount and less on the dry wet. Yeah, they're a little clunky, I feel like, is kind of the way I feel about them. Like I only ever really want to use them if I have something that I think is okay and I want to like just totally like go nuts with it. Like I want to put it in like a really strange place. If I have something that I already like, something like this, where it's like, that's kind of a nice core of a sound. I feel like it's only good for just like messing things up. And sometimes like that means in a positive way. And but if I like, I don't know, if I want something to sound the way it sounds, I'm not going to use either of the spectral ones. But if I want something to sound totally different, the spectral ones are great. But the situations are somewhat few and far between. Yeah, so Van, you 100% can layer instruments. So you can only have one instrument on a track at a time. But an instrument rack is an instrument. And so you can have multiple layers of an instrument rack inside of an instrument rack. So if you hit this little button down here, this is your chain area. And then you can take a different instrument. So here I've got this arpeggiator, or this arpeggiated sound with all the effects on it. But if I wanted to layer this with like an operator, I could toss it in here. And now I have operator for Spitfire. No worries. I kind of assumed you already knew about layering racks, considering what you're talking about other stuff. But yeah. But instrument racks are great if you're not using them. It's hard to keep up with chat all the time. It's hard. Also, for some reason, the screen for chat is very small, and so I have to like really struggle to read it sometimes. Yeah, Josh, I haven't noticed any stability issues with the Inspired by Nature pack, but I have noticed that like they're a little CPU heavy. Yeah, I mean, you could have multiple Spitfires on a single instrument rack, on a single track if you wanted to. So, kind of relevant. Yeah, adding more effects here. And the phaser. All right, and then I think the last thing I want to do here is put a little modulation on the filter time. Let's turn off some of the other effects so we can really hear this. We're not getting the repitching. Repitch is on. Oh, it's the filter, that's why. This is a cool thing that can work out really well if you are subtle about it. Just putting a tiny bit of LFO on your delay time detunes your delays just a little bit, which can add this nice kind of like little bit of like, not quite like analog, but just like weird out of tuneness. It's something like people like Niels Fromm do sometimes. They'll like actually play with their tape delay and like make their tape delay changes the pitch a little bit. But too much of it sounds terrible. And then we gotta randomize our velocities here a little bit. I'm just gonna use the velocity device to do that. Random. That way it's not too random. Nice. Okay, let's do a little bit more. So Van, are you talking about live 10 or live 11? I felt like live 10, especially for the last while, was pretty stable. I did not have a whole lot of issues with 10. My issues with 11 have not been as bad as other people's, but they still exist occasionally here and there. Yeah, so 11 I think it's had a few issues, but I've seen a lot more people talking about issues that I have not experienced personally. Like in my own kind of like day-to-day life, occasionally I'll get some like beach balls when doing things that shouldn't be that difficult. Occasionally I'll get a crash here and there, but it's not been super bad for me personally. And I'm using one of the new M1 iMacs, which is not like even officially supported by Live yet, technically. So yeah, but I've seen a lot of forum posts, a lot of people talking on Reddit and places about like just nothing working at all, and I have not experienced that personally. But yeah, so Tripathi, I've talked to people who work at Ableton, and they are very aware of the issues. That's why they pumped out 11.0.1 and 11.0.2 so fast. And I definitely have noticed a difference in improving quality since they did those two little mini updates. And I think that was the big thing that they were focusing on, was stability. And I would assume that within the next couple weeks or month or so, we'll probably get another mini update. But yeah, the Ableton is well aware of the issues, and I'm sure that that's like the main thing they're focusing on right now. But other than that, I don't have any like insider info about what's going on and why it's having so many issues. But yeah, it does seem like pretty universally people are having some issues here and there. Oh, we're gonna have an old off between Emo and Van about who's got the most old school stuff going on in their studio. Yeah, I think it's a little interesting because I do know that Live really values like stability. That's like one of the big things that they worry about a lot, and that's like a big reason why a lot of the development cycle is so slow. So I'm sure that they're stressed out about it, and they are trying their best to figure out what is going on and how to fix it. But like I said, my issues have been noticeable, but not like they haven't impacted me super heavily. Yeah, and I feel like I was using the beta since before it was officially announced, and stability has definitely improved. It definitely feels like they're looking into things and why there's been so many issues. Yeah, I've got a DJ gig coming up in a couple weeks, and I will most likely be using Live 10 for that. Not because I think Live 11 will crash or anything like that, but just to be safe, just in case, because you never know. I have my first post-COVID DJ gig. I'm stoked about it. All right. I think a little bit less on the chorus. And a little more on the phaser, maybe. All right, I feel like it's gotten a little bit off the beaten path where I wanted it to be. You guys got any other ideas for effects for this guy? I feel like it's getting close to where I want it to be for my little ambient arpeggiator sound. Might put toss a saturator on it potentially. But other than that, I feel like it's mostly where I want it to be. Oh, oscillator 2 is also turned off. That's why. And now I gotta fix oscillator 2 and make sure that sounds good. Yeah, all right, let's take this and let's just toss some spectral stuff on it. Let's do spectral time. But yeah, I think a little saturation, a little bit of warmth on here is probably the last thing I'd actually do. All right, I'm gonna have to turn an echo off because that's just gonna be too much with both delays on at the same time. So spectral time is a little weird because it's kind of like two different things at the same time. We have a delay right here, and then we have a freezer right here. And so the two of them together make up the actual effect. Although I'm not sure if this is going to work on this kind of sound. So we can turn the freeze on, and then we can set this to re-trigger either based off of a certain volume, or based off of an increment of time, or an increment of the grid. So here, every eighth note, it's like taking a little snapshot and freezing it, which is like a little annoying. Or we could have it set so that certain volumes will just turn on and freeze it. So it's basically kind of like the freeze mode on some of the reverbs, where it just takes whatever frequencies are coming through and just kind of keeps pushing it through, which can be cool to make these interesting, weird pad kind of things. I think works better if you set up to be set at a smaller amount of time, and then there's a crossfade between the different slices or freezes that it does. And so let's make this a little smaller. So it's creating these weird things based off of the pitch, and then we can crossfade them by either doing a fade in, fade out, or a crossfade. So it's all based off of the sounds that are coming through. But yeah, it's just doing instant slicing on the fly based off of volume or time. And then you take that and you combine that with the delay that also has a bunch of other weird stuff in there. So we have delay time here, feedback, and then let's do and then you can like pitch it, which gets you some like cool, interesting, almost kind of like weird granular kind of stuff going on. So as you can see, it's like art, it's just really good for just totally mauling your sound and turning it into like something totally different. And you can tilt it. So you have all these like really basic delay controls, but also a bunch of other weird stuff built into it as well. Combined with the freezing, gets you these like very strange which in this case is not super pleasant because what we're going for is more kind of like prettier kind of sound. But this will just turn it into mush, and then you can take that mush and then, you know, process it some more and then turn it into something else. So that's kind of like how I feel a lot of these spectral instruments or devices just like can be really cool, but it's not, it's very rarely that like, oh, this is perfect for what I'm doing. Yeah, great for atmospheric sound design stuff. It's great for like industrial techno background noises, like that kind of thing, where just like you just need something kind of like weird and grimy to go like fill in space in your like big bassy techno song. That like that's kind of what it feels like it's kind of designed for. But it's interesting. It's, to me, it's like a lot like this kind of like happy accidents kind of machine where you just toss it on there, tweak a bunch of controls, see what you get. And like see if that sounds cool or not. And if you don't like it, then just move on and try something else with it. Is there a way to take modulators from something and wire it to things like spectral time plugin, like modular synths or Reason? So I have a modular synth that I use, and I use the CV Tools pack to basically get audio from my modular into live, and then I can run it through anything I want. So it just, it's kind of like using the external effect. So I basically take this and then grab audio from my modular, run it through here, and then I can run it through spectral or any effect in live. A lot of times I do it for like reverbs and things like that. And then Reason, I mean, Rewire is no longer supported, so I have no idea how people are routing Reason into live. I know you could take something like sound. There used to be Soundflower, and now you can just use Black Hole, which is basically the equivalent. Or you can you could run. Why am I blanking on this? Audio hijack or loopback. There's like a bunch of things for routing audio. But as far as like taking like CV modulation from modular, yeah, you can do that with the CV Tools pack. So you have like CV instruments, you can have CV modulation. So this will take CV in. So you can grab CV from your interface if you have a DC coupled interface, and then that will send whatever CV, and then you map this to like your spectral time. So I don't have it set up right now, but yeah, you can totally modulate things from hardware if you have access to like CV modulator instrument kind of things. Or as Josh mentioned, you can also use the like LFO. Where would that go? Just toss an LFO in here. The Max for Live device, and then pop this on like, what do you want to put it on? You wanted to put it on time or something like that? Yeah, so in Live 11, they put the LFO and the shaper in the actual audio effects tab. If you can't find them there, you could always go to the Max for Live folder, and then they should be under your Max audio effects. And then you can map this to, I don't know, the shift control. Get some weird stuff that way. Map that to like the tilt. Get some weird noises that way. Yeah, so Van, if you have not been playing around with the LFO device, then you need to get on that. That is super useful. It's just LFOs anywhere you want. It's pretty, like, it does what you think it's going to do. Click the map button, you click the parameter, it's mapped there automatically. You have like minimum and maximum ranges as percentages. You have all your different shapes, all that kind of stuff. You can also, if you click this button, map up to 10 parameters to one LFO. So we could map all of these, have different minimum and maximum ranges, and see what happens. And if you like this guy, you will also like the shaper, which does basically the exact same thing, except for you can customize the shape. So you can map this wherever you want, but you can also go in here and dial this in. I made a video about this that's on the channel not too long ago, and you can start like customizing it. You can adjust the curve and create all kinds of like weird shapes that way. Yep, and you can absolutely map LFOs to other LFOs. But yeah, it's just infinite modulation wherever you want. So I could map this one to the rate of this one. Let's put this one on oops, I didn't mean to do that. Put this on unsynced, map this here, change the amount. And then get whatever you want. Yeah, and LFOs anywhere you want. And then once you've done that, you also have the envelope follower, which is the other really useful one. Same thing, except for it responds to the volume of the audio gets sent through it. Let's put this before our spectral time. So we can take this signal, we can boost it with the gain, and then we can map that to anything we want. So just modulators everywhere, anytime. Because they're audio effects, you can put them anywhere in the signal flow where the audio effects go. Really, really handy. Yeah, they've added so many ways to like easily do modulation. Like those Max for Live devices have been around forever, but they kind of like hid them away in like the Max for Live folders, and now they're kind of like integrating them into like the actual core elements of the audio effects that you have access to. So I think they've realized that people like want those features and just don't know that they exist because they used to be hidden away. And a lot of people are really tentative about getting into Max for Live because it seems really intimidating, but you can just get started with Max for Live and just use other people's devices. Well, Van, that's what I'm here for, is to keep everybody out there up to date with all of the weird stuff that nobody tells you about. That's like basically my whole job right now, is just sitting around thinking about things that I think are cool that not enough people know about. Yeah, like, having background in programming is great, for Macs because they're all open source. So if you want to like tweak it a little bit, you can always get in there and change it up and make it do what you want. But you don't need to do any programming to do Mac stuff. It's just really cool, weird devices that people have decided they thought were really cool. I have not heard of volume compensator. I will have to check that out. I'm always on the lookout for the new hot Max for Live devices. Well, you're very welcome, Van. And Tripathi. Yeah, I think I'm gonna start doing more videos on kind of off the beaten path Max for Live devices that I think are really cool. There's a really nice Euclidean sequencer that actually just got updated. I haven't tried the updated version yet, but I'll probably start making some videos on things like that because they're really cool. A lot of the Dylan Bastion stuff, like the Dylan Bastion stuff that's in the Inspired by Nature pack, also really cool. So if you haven't checked out this guy, really cool devices. But Dylan Bastion also releases other devices that he makes, and they are super weird, but they are really cool. So I'm gonna start making some more videos on some of his other stuff. There's a few others out there that I think are interesting that I think other people might enjoy as well. I also make a few videos on Max programming. I'm a little hesitant to do that because I think there's a lot of other people who are probably better Max programmers than I am, who can teach you that kind of stuff. But if you guys are interested in learning some of the basics of how to just kind of like build a basic Max batch, I can cover that. I mean, I did that a little bit in my Max visuals video, and that was really fun. So maybe I will do some more of that kind of stuff. But there's so many tools out there, it's hard to keep track of all of them. Sweet. Well, anybody else got any other questions, topics they want to get into, comments, ideas? Also, I think there are people here that were not here when I made this announcement earlier. There's going to be no Friday feedback stream for this Friday, but next week, the 25th, that is when the sample pack song challenges are due. So if you are working on those, keep in mind that's like a week and a half, a little over a week away. And then I will be reviewing all of the songs from the sample pack challenge on the 25th. What's up, Roberta? Welcome. So Emo's asking about third-party favorites. So yeah, so my go-tos for third-party plugins are Contact. Will forever just be like an amazing tool to have at your disposal, no matter what kind of music you make. It's just like it does everything, and pretty much everything sounds great. And then other than that, Valhalla, pretty much anything Valhalla makes, especially Shimmer and Vintage Verb, those are just like, I will always use those because they sound really great, especially Shimmer. Shimmer's just like, for my style of music that I make, the kind of like weird ambient spacey stuff, Shimmer is just perfect. And then other than that, most of the FabFilter stuff is really, really solid. Those are ones that I like. If I need something to sound like really clean, or I'm doing like vocal processing, or doing more kind of utility-based stuff, pretty much all the FabFilter stuff is just like gets the job done and is pretty easy to use. Those are my main third-party tools that I use these days. But I like Serum. I like a lot of the like synthesizer stuff that's out there. I like kind of like interesting takes on it. Oh, Reactor is another really one I like a lot, just because Reactor has a million different tools in there, and there's a lot of like layers of things to discover within all the Reactor libraries and things people have made. Roberto, I appreciate the compliment. That's very kind of you. Yeah, I'm not sure which. I remember somebody was talking about a spectrum analyzer that allows you to see multiple channels at the same time, but I don't remember what it's called. But yeah, as I mentioned earlier in the stream, most of what I do is in the box live devices, just because it's quick and it's easy and they sound really good. Yeah, I use a decent amount of the isotope stuff, especially when I'm mastering. I think it's really useful to try out different plugins because different interfaces, like different user interfaces, elicit different creative choices. And so if I'm just using Wavetable every day for all my sounds, I'm going to be making a lot of the same creative choices versus if I like occasionally I'll use Massive, or occasionally I'll use Serum, or occasionally I'll use something totally different. So I think it's good to switch up plugins every once in a while just to kind of like break up your workflow and like challenge your brain into working different ways and trying different things. So that's one of the things I like about plugins. It's one of the things I really like about modular synthesis is that like modular synthesis is a much different approach to making music that I'm not really used to. And so I think that's really helpful for just trying out different things. I'd like to do a modular stream sometime, but my camera situation sounds complicated. I barely got the camera on the push, but I think that'd be fun at some point. I'll have to check out Pendulate. I'm gonna start Googling some of these things. Yeah, I have two cameras. One is just kind of a generic webcam, so I could set that up in front of the modular and start kind of doing a little programming kind of thing, modular programming. Yeah, Vital's dope. I played around with that a bit. If there's like 5 different conversations about different plugin recommendations all going on in chat, and I have no idea who's recommending what to who, but I like what's going on, and I appreciate what's happening. It's been a great stream so far. You guys have been awesome. It's interesting. Sometimes not a lot of people have been showing up to streams, and sometimes tons of people show up. So this is great, and I have no idea why. But I'm glad all you guys are here. I'm glad you guys are helping share information with each other. Cool. So I'm gonna probably log off in a little bit. Any final questions or topics you guys want to get into? Favorite plugin at the moment? Uh, hmm. Yeah, Van, I do this every Tuesday, 5 to 7 Mountain Time. Just kind of hang out, talk about stuff. Sometimes I'll be making a lot of music. Sometimes we'll just be chatting about stuff. It really kind of changes a little bit. And then Friday afternoons, I do the song feedback streams. So Tuesdays and Fridays are when I do the streams. But Josh, as far as my favorite plugin at the moment, one I've been playing around more recently, because I was already talking about my all-time favorites, is Sublab by, who makes Sublab? I forget the name of the company. Future Audio Workshop. It's kind of like a cool, like it does what you think it's going to do. It generates like sub sounds. It's fun, it's easy, and I like the interface a lot. That's one of the things I really enjoy about it, is it has like nice colors and everything visually looks really nice. So that'd be one I would recommend. That's kind of like a newer one. That's not one of my classic like all-time favorites. So love my audio routing setup for streaming. Changed actually earlier today. So normally my setup is I am using in a multi-output device. So inside of OS X, you can set up a multi-output device where you can basically send from one place to multiple interfaces. So traditionally the way I've been doing it is sending the audio in the multi-output device to my universal audio so I can hear it, and then also sending it to Black Hole. So Black Hole is basically like the spiritual successor to Soundflower, which is a way to route audio inside your computer from one application to another. And so inside of OBS, it was receiving from Black Hole. However, last week or thereabouts, Black Hole just stopped working. It'll work sometimes, but it mostly does not anymore. And I have no idea why. Nothing has changed. I re-downloaded it, reinstalled it, and Black Hole has just been garbage for some reason. So today I did things a little different, where I am using a software called Audio Hijack. So Audio Hijack looks like this. And I'm still using Black Hole. So Black Hole still works, but Ableton and Black Hole don't like each other anymore. And I don't know why. So this is what I'm running, where it's getting my audio out of Live to Black Hole, and then Black Hole goes into OBS, and then the audio comes out here and goes to the universal audio. So Black Hole is a little different. It's like it's still kind of running on in the background, and it still kind of works. So this has worked for today so far, so I'm happy about that. So I'll probably continue to do it this way. Audio Hijack, which is this program right here, works the same way, or is made by the same company that makes Loopback, Amoeba or something like that. I'm not sure what it is. It was literally like last week it stopped working. Like the stream last week it worked fine, and then since then it's been super weird. And like if I set up Black Hole as one of my outputs from Live, nothing works, and I'm not entirely sure why. So there's some issue with Live and Black Hole not wanting to be together, but this worked for me. But Amoeba makes this. They also make Loopback. I'm going to download Loopback at some point this week and try this out and try it out, because I think Loopback will work better overall. So this works functionally for me right now, but this is maybe an intermediate step, and I'm going to download Loopback, test it out, see if I like it better. Yeah, Loopback is super cool. It does a lot of really interesting stuff. Like it might solve a lot of problems for me in terms of like audio routing in different places. But yeah, that's my current routing setup, using Blackhole, which is free, and I think works on both PC and Mac. Although I'm not entirely sure. If you just Google Blackhole audio routing, it's free. Spatial audio. Where's the spatial audio settings? Is that in your audio MIDI setup somewhere, or is that somewhere else? Yeah, it seems like it's just left and right. Yeah, there's a lot of options out there for routing, and it's always kind of a pain in the ass to deal with. And I was feeling pretty comfortable with it, until Black Holes just stopped working. And I've had like a number of issues with OBS as well, but everything seems to be good so far. Everything seems to be working. This is actually one of the very few streams where my microphone didn't die at all. So I'm wondering if maybe Black Hole was contributed to some of the mic issues I was dealing with earlier. Who knows? But I believe loopback is kind of the solution to almost every problem you could encounter. But I need to download it. Yeah, it's not an actual black hole. It's just a metaphorical black hole. Man. Yeah, I'll take a look into it and see if there's something going. I had an issue with black hole like last week at some point, so I switched from using the 16 channel to the 2 channel, and that fixed it for a little bit, and then it still didn't work this week. And so it's been really strange. It's been very picky. Not a lot of logic to it. I have not tried Loop Deck. Let me check that out. Oh, it's like a little controller dude that connects with like different applications. Does that work with, what does that work with for software? I mean, it seems kind of cool. I already have like a bunch of MIDI controllers and things going on. But yeah, it's kind of crazy. Yeah, I mean, between the push and all my MIDI controllers and stuff, I'm already pretty tight on desk space. Seems cool. I'll watch some videos, see if I see it in action, but I can't really imagine that like replacing either a MIDI controller or keyboard and mouse. But it's kind of cool concept. Sweet. So I think I'm gonna call it about here for tonight. I'm gonna need to get myself some dinner. But I appreciate all you guys. You guys are great. If you appreciated the stream and want to help me out, for some reason YouTube has not been sharing a lot of my content recently. So liking it, commenting on things, sharing it with people is super useful for me. And like I said, I was noticing a lot of steady growth with the channel, and now it just is like plateaued hardcore. So anything you guys can do that would help the channel, help spread the word a little bit, would be very valuable to me, and I'd appreciate it quite a bit. But yeah, other than that, I will see you guys back here hopefully next Tuesday. for another one of these just kind of hangout streams, and maybe some modular potentially if I have time to set that up, or on the 25th and for the sample pack song challenge. So, Love, I thought about doing TikTok, and I'm not sure if I am like, I don't know if I can handle it. But yeah, it's on the list of things that I may or may not do. I'm already like terrible at social media. I already hate social media, so I can't imagine myself like putting a lot of effort into that. I'm trying to get more in the habit of using Instagram and things for promoting videos. Yeah, but yeah, TikTok still there's like a big like learning curve that I'm like not ready for TikTok. Like I can handle Instagram, I can handle a lot of social media, but TikTok is, I know it works. Like people are blowing up out of TikTok, so it's the hot thing right now. So Van, the sample pack song challenge, I made a video about it on the channel a couple weeks ago. I had asked people what they thought would be fun for the channel to do, and everybody wanted a sample pack challenge. So I released the sample pack at the beginning of the month. It's all stuff I made with my modular synthesizer, and basically you can download it. The link is on the video, and then you can take those samples, you do whatever you want with them, sample them, chop them, slice them, turn it into whatever you want. And then they will be due on the 25th of this month, so a week from Friday. And then during the Friday feedback stream that I do, where people send me tracks and I give them feedback, we'll be just doing all the different kind of variations. We'll be talking about them, all the variations, but all the songs people made using those samples, and just that's kind of the idea. Yeah, I think for like things like Instagram and TikTok, it's got to be like super short and sweet. It's got to be like you have 20 seconds to deliver in a piece of information, and so you got to be like really tight about it. Yeah, man, you can use Live or anything. Honestly, like I'm not like I'm not a DAW like purist. Use whatever tools you want, whatever tools you got. Have fun with it. I don't really care. I just want the community to do cool things and make cool songs, and then listen to them. That's really the goal. But yeah, all that info is in the video that I made. And if it goes well and people are into it, we'll probably keep doing it, and maybe not every month, maybe like every other month or something like that. We'll do some more sample pack challenges. Yeah, I think that yeah, I'm really excited about it. I think it should be a lot of fun. I mentioned this earlier in the stream, but I am like way behind on mine. I worked on it a little bit on stream last week, and that's basically it. Yeah, I love the Discord channel is up. If you want to check it out, I think the link is in the bottom of almost all the videos. Let me know if the link doesn't work. There's no rules on this one. I think later on I might have like restrictions in terms of like you either can't use third-party plugins, or you like has to be this tempo, or it has to be one thing or another. For this one, it's whatever you want, however you want to do it. It's totally cool. And the time of the stream is the same time as the Tuesday stream, which is 5 to 7 p.m. Mountain Time. I don't know what time zone you're in, but same time as the stream, basically. But yeah, go nuts with those samples. Have some fun with it. All right, I am calling it for the evening. Thank you, everybody. Sweet. Yeah, so you're not too far away. I'm in Colorado myself. Yeah, we got a bit of variety in terms of where people are coming in from, which is great. All right, you guys are great. I love you guys. This is awesome. See you guys a week from today, or on the 25th, whatever. You can also join the Discord for other info and stuff. I'm still working on making the Discord more active, but join that if you want to come hang out. All right, peace, everybody. Have a good night. Make some music. Or morning, I guess, if you're in Australia.